Hello everyone, and welcome to this next episode in the video discussion series from the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight, and I've been with RICS now for nearly 11 years, and I work within the standards, regulation and thought leadership part of the organisation with a role to look at the effect of data and technology right across the built and natural environment. With over 130,000 members working worldwide, right across the property cycle and across land, rural, residential, commercial, alternative assets and infrastructure, the opportunities for data and technology are absolutely vast. And I'm really happy today to have Stanislas join me from BIMData IO to chat with me. So Stanislas, please to join me.
Hi Andrew, thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, although we're going to get into some bits and bytes and some detail here about what your platform does, it's always nice perhaps to start with the human side of things. So it'd be great to hear a bit more about your background in terms of your skills and experience, and indeed the kind of origin story of BIMData IO, if we may.
Okay, yeah, with pleasure. The origin is pretty low basically, because I started my career in finance, and when it was the end of the 80s, another time we were basically working on standard and how we could share information very quickly. And it wasn't much about the standards themselves, it was more about the straight-through processing of data. So basically, I've spent 5 years in this environment before moving back to France. I was working in London at the time, working back to France, where I bought a property management company, a family company. And I discovered a very different environment where we had many softwares, but basically the data was not structured, or there were absolutely no standards to share data. So that was kind of a surprise to me, and I was getting very frustrated about it, because we were wasting a lot of time creating our own standards, trying to build up databases. And I've managed this company for quite a few years. I was looking for the right standard to apply, and I discovered in the way the IFC, basically the industry foundation classes, which are standards that can describe the building environments and the buildings and civil infrastructure as well in a very standardized way, so we can exchange the data, the geometry, and the data attached to the geometry as well. And like we've had been experiencing in the finance, being able to share data. And it was something that really struck me at the time, is that the IFC has been existing for many years, and they were not being used that much, both in the construction side and of course on the property management side of it. So I went back to school, basically, studying at an engineering school, where I did a year there, a bit more, a year and a half, where I work on the standard. I work with engineers and architects. And at the end of this studies, I decided that I would focus on really on this new, new to me standards, and sold my business, the property management company, and I set up BIMData. And we decided from day one that basically what we are building would be an API, or we will get the standards within an IT environment, and we will plug it to any software. So that was the idea. And what we are trying to achieve by doing that basically is to take into account all the big requirements for the new way of managing and building, which are basically the environmental requirements, the occupant comfort, technical and financial performances. And looking at, I have experienced that before, looking into all these subjects were really very complex, and we had to build up each time a new project to tackle those issues. So it's not just about having the data that can flow with a standard from a software to another one, but it's connecting as well the software. So if you want to reduce your CO2 emission, if you want to improve the building performances, reduce the costs, etc., then you will be able to connect through BIMData different solutions. into your own IT environment.
Indeed. Now, obviously, IFC Industry Foundation classes from Building Smart, as you say, is a very, as the name suggests, a foundational standard in terms of that geometry, that way of capturing the asset that's going to be built, and then hopefully use it in the operational phase as well. What other standards are you working with on top of that fundamental standard of IFC that's so good at capturing the geometry?
So basically, we're using different standards that have different purposes for us. The IFC purpose is really the ability to exchange data. So we are talking about interoperability. We're not using only IFCs, we're using as well DWG and PDF because they are standards that are being used industry-wide, and sometimes the PDF especially and the DWG, they've been there they've been here for a long time, so therefore we need to take them into account. The other standard we're working with are more the standards for the methodology. How do you exchange data in the design phases and construction phases, and for the operational maintenance as well. So there are more the ISO 19650, which are the standard that explain how a BIM environment should be organized to exchange the data through the different players. And finally, the other sort of standards we're working with are the one which are going to be very efficient to build a benchmark. And because it's nice to structure the data, it's interesting to be able to get a nice view of some good reporting, some BI on what you're doing. But then it's interesting if the industry does it the same way, because then you can benchmark. And the two really the big standards we've been working with are the ICMS and the IPMS, which are the first one is the standard for the cost, and the other one is the standard for the property measurement. That's been, as you know, has been set up or coordinated by the RICS and many other institutions. And for us, it's a very important one, because at the end of the day, you want to measure the efficiency of what you're doing. And measuring is important, but then being able to compare the performance of your assets is even more important. And if I take the example where we're using the IPMS, the measurement standards, it's always interesting to see the performance in terms of kilowatts per hour of consumption in a building. But then if you're not measuring the same surface, of course, you're going to find very different results, and it doesn't make any sense to compare different buildings. It's always about comparing apples and pears, basically. So you want the comparison to be standardized. So basically that's the three view we have on standards: is interoperability, methodology, and benchmarking.
So, I mean, do you think there are still any gaps in the standards that are available, whether that's interoperability or measuring carbon or other things? So, what does the sector still need to do to make sure we can exchange data as freely as possible?
Of course, there are many gaps, and all the big institutions like the ISO or AFNOR in France or the UK equivalent, they're working very hard, and the UK has been really pushing and building up standards on the BIM side. But what we are finding as well is that the technology is evolving very rapidly, and we decided 7 years ago when we started the company, we decided to be API first. It's easy to connect data when the data is standardized, but then you need to connect the systems, and to connect them easily. The API is a really efficient way to do it. So I would say that the new technos and the new way of sharing information through APIs is helping improving the efficiency of data sharing.
Indeed. Well, what about the challenge? I mean, you've used a couple of words there, data and information, and there's an argument that data is kind of raw and you need to turn that into information. So how are you working with your solution to turn that raw data into information that people can actually act on? Because that's almost a challenge. There's lots of data, but people still find it hard to make decisions with information.
Yeah. The answer for us is not very straightforward, because we built our techno on standards, but basically we rely on third-party services to be able to transform the data into something that you're going to use on a day-to-day basis to improve your performances and to benchmark your assets, basically. And the way we do it, it's on top of the API. We have a marketplace, and we are connecting with solutions. I take an example. We developed a solution through Schneider Electrical. They've got their API where they make the sensor data available through their API. And when you start looking into the data, basically you will find that sensors and the huge amount of data they are measuring all the time could be providing us with a time series of data that mean absolutely nothing to us. So we don't have the ability to understand what's happening on the operational side of each solution that is providing data, because you need to know what you are measuring, what are the different targets, what are the alarms where you have that you can trigger if there is a fault in the building. So basically, for us, what we think is that connecting through the API or through a marketplace will bring the possibility for the asset or the end user to get the data, but the data being analyzed by the provider, the people who know the trade. There is no way we're going to know every trade for every country. There are too many regulations, too many ways as well to collect data. So we prefer to work with third-party services who are very good at what they do and know what they're doing. So basically, they just provide us with the data that has been already analyzed.
I understand. So in that sense, and I know it's perhaps an overused term, Stanislas, but are you effectively building digital twins by using this approach and having these various feeds of data into the basic geometry of an asset?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because digital twins, it's a big subject at the moment. Yeah. So there are two ways of approaching the digital twins. I think what we read right now, when we read about digital twins, there is this idea that we will have a solution that will gather all the information and basically will be able to provide the end user with all the analysis, all the alarms, or the information they need to either manage or use the asset properly or maintain. We think that for us, it's not going to happen, and we rather see the market of being more decentralized, because if you look at an asset, the way an asset is being managed depends on the type of assets you are managing, the location, and then the setup of the asset itself. Who's the property manager, the facility manager, the asset manager, who's the owner, and sometimes as well the way the tenant is acting within the asset. Is it a multi-tenant or is it a mono-tenant? Then the bargaining power moves from the different players. So at the end of the day, the asset itself would have a very different way of interacting with an ecosystem. And the ecosystem is going to be the CMMS, for the maintenance. It's going to be the asset manager software. So what we see, basically, it's more about the connection that are being made between the different players. A lot of players, the new one especially, they are more open. they're happy to share data. So they would, each asset will pick and choose the best solution for what they want to achieve. And the more we go on the market, the more connection we have. And then basically that will be more, for me, a puzzle rather than one solution that's going to do everything. So long answer for saying no, we are not going to be able to bring a building operation system, but we will be part, and we are already part of different solutions and different puzzles that will fit a specific need.
Indeed. And what sort of people are you working with? What sort of customers and stakeholders in the markets you're operating are adopting your approach and using your platform?
I would say at the moment, we are mainly based in France.
Yeah.
We are based in France. We have one person in Germany, and I'm based in Spain. And of course, we work as well in the UK market, but being based abroad. So the focus is more European, but the largest part of the market for us is French. So the feedback I'm going to give you is for the French market mainly.
That's fine.
So what we've seen basically is that the government, local authorities, and the social housing players, they've been the one who've been in the market the earliest, because they are going to run their assets for many years. Usually they build them and they keep them. That's the idea. There is not a big turnover of assets with those players. So basically, they can take the view and they can invest in that sort of product or solutions. So because they know that they're going to benefit from it, not in 2 years' time, but maybe in 5, 6, 10 years' time. So basically, they are building the knowledge of their assets because it's very beneficial for them, and they have the time to see the benefit of that. So they were the first one, and there are many flagship projects like the Société du Grand Paris, basically 200 kilometers of train tracks with 60 stations. Everything is being built so in BIM. So basically, they are raising basically the level of the construction industry by paying for the BIM. And I think it's part of what those players want, is to be able in every part of France to basically tender, pay for the industry to improve and to use this sort of technology. And of course, following that, you've got universities, public hospitals. They've got the same view.
So, sorry, carry on, Stanislas.
Yeah, sorry, because we've got 3 types of players basically. Then we have the large companies. They own a big chunk of market share. That would be, for example, Socotec in France. They are the first testing, inspection, and control company within the construction industry. That would be the RICS, which are an electrical distributor. So those are our clients because they have really what they want to do. They want to help their clients as well moving forward. So they are ready to pay operationally for themselves, but as well to be able to bring new solutions to their clients. So they are the one acting right now in that way. And I would say the laggards, they are the one who wants an ROI straight away. And you're talking about basically the private sector.
Yeah.
And this is where it's getting a bit more tricky. It's trickier because they are asking for a 2 years ROI, and then talking about ROI can be pretty complicated because again, we need to come back to measurements, benchmarking, and to be able to make sure that what they are paying for is going to have a return investment in X, Y, Z time.
So is that very much your approach, Stanislas, to measure things, to make those links between the measurements and savings and or other cost benefits? Is that your approach when you're trying to persuade these, as you say, private sector firms who perhaps have that shorter time horizon and need to make a business case almost from day one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea of what we are offering. For example, the big the big studies about BIM and the impact on the cost. That sort of stories, people don't buy it. So what we need to do, and that's what we're doing, we need to focus on a very specific project. And I've got an example here where we are going to make sure that we are going to make our clients earn money. The example I have, what we're doing right now for two main players in the French market. In the French market, you need to, I'm pretty sure it's the same in the UK, but you need to measure when you sell an apartment, you need to measure the apartment, and it's a legal requirement with a very specific way of measuring apartments. So the cost of it, it's roughly to be done. You need to send somebody to do the measurement and then do the report. It's roughly 80 euros, and maybe it is being sold a bit more to the end client, but that's the cost of it. And what we've just done, we've been using the iPhone Pro, so because there's a Lidar on it. So basically, we have a protocol for acquisition where basically the apartment is being scanned in a few minutes, roughly that'd be 2 minutes per 15 square meters roughly, and then the point cloud is being sent to some not designer, but the people who are going to do the 3D model, and then they send back the plan with the measurements and the 3D model, and it's costing 30% less than the same use being done by a professional. So it's more precise. They've got more because they've got a BIM model, and it's less expensive. And then you start to have the private sector waking up and saying, "Oh, okay, that is interesting." But it's a lot of work basically, because we need to find each time a way to prove or to make the connection, because I'm not doing that by myself. I've got different players into this game who are going to help me, because that's not my job is to provide the software, it's not to provide this sort of solution. But I need to make sure that we can prove that what we're doing is going to be worth their money. And so that's the way we work basically.
And how do you see the market in the next 5 years in terms of where your solution is now and where you think your solution is going to grow, and indeed how you feel the market as a whole is going to develop?
So what we are seeing in the market as well, and that the best example is the BIM World in Paris. 7 years ago, when we went to the BIM World, we were presenting the API from BIMData, and basically we had absolutely no contact, or because people were just a bit surprised by the approach. And 7 years later, we are coming back to the BIM world, and we are connected to basically a third of the player there. So it's not about only the techno BIMData having more end user. It's about BIMData being connected to other solutions. So what we think is that the solutions are going to get connected more and more. And what we see as well is that the end user will have more and more power, because that might be an effect as well from the COVID. There will be more choices, and the companies they have to adapt to this new way of working. So today, the end user, they want more for what they are buying. They want better space management. They want better health monitoring. They want better energy performances. And all these requirements from the market, they are going to push the need to use new solutions that can do that. And of course, because the answer will be either by having one big solution, that's the boss idea, or finding the right solutions to build your own answer to the market. That has been to push a lot the market going through the direction of digitalization. And then what we are hoping is that all this data is going to feed back, because at the moment it's more about how do I construct basically a solution that fits the market. But then if we use the right standards, it's going to be how do we get this data being structured, and how do we feed back to financial model, how do we feed back the data to management model, to the design, and to make sure that we are going to reap the benefits of this organization, because this is really what we need at the end of this transition, is to be able to really benchmark and make improvements all the time on the performances of the assets, basically.
Indeed. Is there anything you can show us visually to give us an idea of what joining these data sets together can bring? Because so often a visual way of looking at these things can unlock a lot of information for people, can't it?
Yes, of course, with pleasure. So I'm going to share my screen. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. Just to give you a little bit of background about the product we're doing. So I was saying we have this technology, which is the API that connects systems, and we are using as well the open format to connect the data. We have as well a platform that connects the people, basically. So the platform is the client of the API, so it's a good instrument, of course, for the people who are using it for the design and construction phases. But it's a good instrument as well to show you what we can do with BIMData. So I've got two examples. The first one would be with one large player in France who has seen a poor asset. We discussed this one earlier on, Socotec. So I'm going to show you a project where we are doing the implementation of. I will just have this that annoys me. Okay, I'm going to go to webinar in the way. So I'm just opening the electrical model of a building. Okay, Andrew, I think we need to skip that one because I've got something on my way. So if you can stop the recording.
Yeah, we can just start again when you're comfortable, Stanislas, and
exactly.
edit it out.
Yeah, because I've got the Go webinar straight onto my the button I want to click in. So that's it. So okay, so now I've got it. Yeah, so basically I'm going to open the electrical model from the Socotec head office, and as you can see, we are fetching data from Schneider Electrical. And again, there is no way I can interpret the data. Schneider is doing it. And if I just to give you a better view, I'm going to add the architectural model, and then you get the idea. So for example, if I click on and I'm looking for an alarm, I've got an electrical board which is in red, so just I click on it and I've got the data, and I've got as well the 3D context. So that's what you can see on the platform. It's not being used on BIMData platform. It's being used on the client's own platform, so they can view the alarm and they can act on the alarm. So basically, that's the idea. So the idea behind the technology again is to be able to do some connection with other data. It's not about one specific answer to a problem. It's more about how do I connect the right solution. And here I've got another example, basically, where the facility manager, again, is using our techno in their system, so they can integrate all the other services into the model. So here, for example, I've got a filter where I can look for different period of time, type of intervention, and such. And for example, if I click on one of those, I can do the link between, and you can see the highlight here. I can do the link between the 3D model and the other services. And I can do the other way around. I can click on an object and look what sort of intervention that has been done on this specific equipment. And I've got two types. And if I want to really see what's happening, I can make the link with the CMMS software. And basically, I've got all the details of what they've been doing on the platform. So really, this is in this example, we can see interface between the BIM structure and other type of data. We were talking as well about the way we connect the different type of data. There is a very good way as well to work on buildings with all the data they have, is to use, of course, the BIM, but you can use as well document like the DWG or the PDF. And I've got this example here where basically we have everything, but what we are trying to do is to use the same sort of structure of a BIM model with data which is that has not been BIMmed, but the data is worth the data is worth a lot. So if I take, for example, here, you can check, and I can take. Oops, no, I need to check here. I'm going to open the 2D viewer. And then again, I'm going to open the PDF viewer. And again, that be the 3D viewer here. So what we're doing here, we are making connection between four type of data. Basically the 3D model here, the equivalent of the 3D model with the same sort of information, which would be the 2D IFC, where you can have synchronization with the 3D. For example, if I move my building, I will have this connection here. But I'm using as well the PDFs and of course the DWG and the PDF. And basically that's one of the very important part of BIMData, is that we do this connection with the different type of data.
Yeah.
Every type of data is important, and the legacy data has to be used because it's worth something. So we connect data, we connect people, and we connect systems. And again, the legacy systems can be transformed very easily through the connection with BIMData.
It's certainly a very powerful demonstration that as you say, we need to connect all these different sets of data that come in different formats. And I think particularly powerfully for me is that sense that with many assets, we won't have a full BIM IFC model. So we have to work with that legacy data and still enable that legacy data to be connected to these newer data sets, as you say, around maintenance, around sensors that perhaps are being fitted, but that we still don't have that perhaps original IFC model. So I think it's a very powerful story there about interoperability with the data that we have rather than perhaps the data we would like. So.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, what we've seen in the last 7 years, the promise of the BIM is just amazing, but then it's expensive, and the market is not going fast enough. So the idea is to basically take every legacy data and structure it and make it useful. And then you can start working without BIM, and then when you are ready, you can move to BIM. And for some of our clients, they don't even want to use BIM. They're just happy to have their data gathered in the same environment and do the connection even with their internal documents. That's already something powerful to have the connection with a plan and a document.
Now, and I think that's so important with so many thousands of assets in every market that have already been built and haven't been BIMmed. And as you say, there may not be a business case to retrofit and create a BIM model. So I think we're in a situation, particularly when we think of these sustainability issues as well as building operation, that we'll have to work with these assets, and we'll have to work with 2D drawings and as you say, legacy data that we still need to digitize and connect to these other data sets. So very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fascinating to talk today, Stanislas, and thanks for your time. And I look forward to catching up in the future. But for the moment, thanks for your time. It's been really fascinating, and have an enjoyable rest of the day.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Thanks a lot.